B. Dalton, the mall bookstore that lost its chapters. Picture this. It's 1985. You're wandering through the local shopping mall, and you catch the unmistakable scent of fresh paperbacks mixed with that peculiar mall air conditioning smell. You follow it to a compact storefront packed floor to ceiling with books, where teenagers are thumbing through the latest Stephen King novel while parents browse the bestseller wall. This was B. Dalton Bookseller, and for 3 decades it was America's gateway to literary culture, pioneering the very concept of chain bookstores in shopping malls. Named after a fictional character from its founder's imagination, B. Dalton grew from a single Minneapolis store in 1966 to over 900 locations by its peak, becoming synonymous with accessible book buying for suburban America. The company revolutionized how Americans discovered and purchased books, introducing computerized inventory systems, sophisticated market research, and the radical idea that books could be sold like any other retail commodity. But this pioneer of book retail would ultimately fall victim to the very forces it helped unleash, dying a slow death as the industry it created evolved beyond recognition. B. Dalton's story is one of innovation rewarded, then punished, a cautionary tale of how quickly a market leader can become obsolete when the rules of the game change forever. The story begins in 1966 when Bruce Dalton, heir to the Dalton department store fortune, decided to enter the book business with a different approach than the stuffy, literary bookshops that dominated the market. Dalton's vision was radical for its time. Create bright, organized bookstores that felt welcoming to average consumers, not just intellectuals and academics. He named the venture after B. Dalton, a completely fictional character he invented to give the stores a personal, approachable identity. The first store opened in the Southdale Center in Edina, Minnesota, making it one of the first bookstore chains specifically designed for shopping mall locations. This wasn't accidental. Dalton understood that the future of American retail was moving to suburban malls, and he wanted to position books as an integral part of that experience. The original B. Dalton stores were compact, typically around 1,500 square feet, but they maximized every inch with careful merchandising and display techniques borrowed from department store retail. Unlike traditional bookstores that organized inventory by publisher or academic categories, B. Dalton grouped books by popular genres and prominently featured bestsellers, making it easy for casual browsers to find something appealing. The company's early success was built on treating books like any other consumer product, using data-driven approaches to inventory management that were revolutionary for the book industry. By 1969, just 3 years after opening, B. Dalton had expanded to 7 stores and was generating enough revenue to attract serious attention from major retailers. The real transformation came in 1971 when Dalton Hudson Corporation, Bruce Dalton's family business, acquired full control of B. Dalton and began an aggressive expansion campaign that would reshape American bookselling. Leonard Riggio, who would later found Barnes & Noble's Superstore concept, got his start in the book business partly by studying B. Dalton's successful mall-based model. The company pioneered the use of computer systems for inventory management in bookstores, implementing one of the first point-of-sale systems that could track sales data in real time across multiple locations. This technological advantage allowed B. Dalton to identify bestsellers faster than competitors and restock popular titles more efficiently than independent bookstores. By 1975, the chain had grown to over 100 locations, making it the largest bookstore chain in America and proving that books could be successfully sold using the same techniques that worked for clothing, electronics, and other retail categories. The company's buyers became some of the most influential people in publishing, with their orders capable of determining which books would become bestsellers and which would languish in obscurity. B. Dalton stores became the primary outlet for mass-market paperbacks, creating a new category of book buyer who might pick up a novel while shopping for clothes or eating at the food court. The chain's success forced traditional bookstores to reconsider their approaches, while publishers began designing covers and marketing campaigns specifically to appeal to the casual browsers who shopped at B. Dalton locations. Throughout the 1980s, B. Dalton reached its peak influence and profitability, becoming a cultural institution that shaped American reading habits in ways that are still felt today. The company operated over 800 stores by 1985, with locations in virtually every major shopping mall in America, making it more accessible to most Americans than their local library. B. Dalton's small store format typically between 1,200 and 2,000 square feet, required careful curation of inventory, which meant the chain's buyers had enormous power to determine which books would be widely available to American readers. The company's merchandising innovations included the creation of special displays for seasonal books, the prominent featuring of bestseller lists, and the development of impulse purchase sections near checkout counters. B. Dalton was among the first retailers to recognize the commercial potential of book series, heavily promoting everything from romance novel series to science fiction franchises that kept customers returning regularly. The chain's success contributed to the growth of category fiction, as publishers realized they could build sustainable businesses around genre readers who would reliably purchase new releases. B. Dalton stores became important community gathering places, hosting author signings, book clubs, and reading events that brought literary culture to suburban areas that might otherwise have limited access to such activities. The company's training programs created a generation of knowledgeable booksellers who could make recommendations and help customers discover new authors, building customer loyalty that went beyond mere convenience. However, the seeds of B. Dalton's eventual downfall were planted during its years of greatest success as the retail landscape began shifting in ways that would undermine its core business model. The rise of big box retailers in the late 1980s and early 1990s created new competition for book sales, with stores like Walmart and Costco using books as loss leaders to attract customers, selling bestsellers at prices that B. Dalton couldn't match while maintaining profitability. More significantly, the emergence of bookstore superstores, pioneered by Leonard Riggio's Barnes & Noble and Borders, offered customers vastly larger selections, comfortable seating areas, and amenities like coffee shops that made book shopping into a leisure activity rather than just a transaction. These superstores, typically ranging from 20,000 to 30,000 square feet, could stock 10 times more titles than a B. Dalton location while offering deeper discounts due to their higher volume purchasing power. The superstore concept appealed to serious book readers who wanted extensive selection and browsing opportunities, while also attracting casual readers with their cafe atmosphere and community events. B. Dalton's mall-based locations, once an advantage, became a liability as shopping patterns shifted away from traditional malls toward power centers and lifestyle centers where superstores could build standalone locations with ample parking. The company's small format stores couldn't accommodate the growing demand for multimedia products like audiobooks, CDs, and later DVDs that became important profit centers for larger bookstores. Additionally, mall rents continued to increase throughout the 1990s, squeezing B. Dalton's already thin profit margins while superstores enjoyed lower per-square-foot occupancy costs in their standalone locations. The beginning of the end came in 1987 when Dayton Hudson Corporation sold B. Dalton to Barnes & Noble for $300 million, creating an awkward situation where the chain would be owned by its primary competitor. Leonard Riggio, Barnes & Noble's chairman, initially maintained B. Dalton as a separate operation, recognizing that the two chains served different market segments and shopping preferences. However, this arrangement created inevitable conflicts as Barnes & Noble's superstore expansion directly competed with B. Dalton locations in many markets, cannibalizing sales and forcing difficult decisions about resource allocation. Barnes & Noble's management faced the challenge of operating two fundamentally different bookstore concepts simultaneously, while the overall book retail market was undergoing rapid consolidation. The company attempted to revitalize B. Dalton by refreshing store designs, expanding inventory management systems, and improving staff training. But these measures couldn't overcome the fundamental disadvantages of the small-format mall model. By the mid-1990s, many B. Dalton locations were struggling with declining sales as customers migrated to superstores, online retailers, and big-box stores that offered better prices and selection. Barnes & Noble began closing underperforming B. Dalton stores while converting some successful locations to Barnes & Noble superstores. But this process was complicated by lease agreements, mall restrictions, and the different space requirements of the two formats. The company also experimented with hybrid concepts, including larger B. Dalton stores that incorporated some superstore features, but these efforts never gained sufficient traction to reverse the chain's decline. The rise of online book retail, led by Amazon's launch in 1995, delivered what would prove to be a fatal blow to B. Dalton's business model, even though the full impact wouldn't be felt for several years. Amazon's unlimited virtual shelf space made B. Dalton's curated inventory seem restrictive, while its competitive pricing undercut the chain's already narrow margins. The convenience of online shopping appealed particularly to the casual readers who had been B. Dalton's core customer base, as they could purchase bestsellers and popular titles without the effort of visiting a mall. B. Dalton's small store format became an even greater liability in the digital age, as the chain couldn't offer the experiential elements that might draw customers away from their computers. No comfortable seating, no cafe, no extensive magazine sections, and limited space for author events or community activities. The company's mall locations, once perfectly positioned to capture impulse purchases, became less relevant as shopping patterns shifted toward more purposeful, destination-based trips rather than leisurely mall browsing. Barnes & Noble's management increasingly focused resources on their superstore concept and online presence, leaving B. Dalton with limited investment in technology upgrades, inventory systems, or marketing initiatives that might have helped it compete more effectively. The chain's employee training and customer service, once significant advantages, became less distinctive as other retailers improved their approaches to book selling. By 2000, B. Dalton had shrunk to fewer than 500 locations, and the pace of closures accelerated as mall traffic declined and competition intensified from multiple directions. The 2000s marked B. Dalton's final chapter, as Barnes & Noble management made the strategic decision to phase out the chain entirely, rather than continue investing in a declining format. The company ceased opening new B. Dalton locations and allowed leases to expire without renewal, gradually reducing the chain's footprint while focusing resources on Barnes & Noble superstores and online initiatives. Some of B. Dalton's most successful locations were converted to smaller Barnes & Noble stores, but these conversions were limited by space constraints and mall lease terms that often made expansion impossible. The rise of ebooks and digital reading devices like the Amazon Kindle further undermined B. Dalton's relevance, as these technologies offered the instant gratification and convenience that had once been the chain's primary advantages over traditional bookstores. B. Dalton's remaining stores struggled with aging infrastructure, limited technology systems, and reduced corporate support as Barnes & Noble prioritized investments in their primary brand. The chain's staff levels were reduced, training programs were scaled back, and inventory selection became increasingly limited to only the most popular titles. Many longtime customers began visiting B. Dalton locations primarily out of nostalgia or convenience rather than preference, as the stores could no longer compete effectively on selection, pricing, or shopping experience. The final B. Dalton stores were often shadows of their former selves, with sparse inventory, minimal staff, and little of the vibrant energy that had once made them destination shopping for book lovers. B. Dalton officially closed its last remaining stores in January 2010, ending a 44-year run that had fundamentally changed how Americans bought and discovered books. The chain's death represented more than just another retail casualty. It marked the end of an era when bookstores served as cultural gatekeepers and community gathering places in suburban America. At its peak, B. Dalton had introduced millions of Americans to authors and genres they might never have discovered otherwise, creating readers and building literary communities in shopping malls across the country. The company's influence on the publishing industry was profound and lasting, establishing many of the practices around bestseller merchandising, genre marketing, and retail partnerships that continue to shape how books are sold today. B. Dalton's pioneering use of technology and data analysis in bookstore operations laid the groundwork for modern retail analytics and inventory management systems used throughout the industry. The chain's small format model influenced the design of airport bookstores, hospital gift shops, and other space-constrained retail environments where book sales remain important. Many publishing professionals, retail executives, and literary figures got their start at B. Dalton stores, learning customer service, inventory management, and the business of books in ways that shaped their later careers. The company's emphasis on making books accessible to casual readers helped democratize literary culture, breaking down barriers between high and popular culture that had previously limited book readership to educated elites. The lessons from B. Dalton's rise and fall remain relevant for retailers, publishers, and entrepreneurs trying to navigate rapidly changing consumer markets. The company succeeded by identifying an underserved market segment, suburban book buyers who wanted convenience and accessibility, and creating a retail format perfectly suited to their needs and shopping patterns. B. Dalton's early adoption of technology and data-driven decision-making gave it crucial advantages over traditional competitors who relied on intuition and established practices. However, the chain's ultimate failure demonstrates how quickly competitive advantages can disappear when market conditions change and new technologies emerge. B. Dalton's inability to adapt its small format model to compete with superstores, online retailers, and big box stores shows the danger of becoming too committed to a specific business model or physical format. The company's fate also illustrates the challenges of operating in a consolidating industry where scale advantages become increasingly important for survival. Barnes & Noble's decision to let B. Dalton die rather than invest in its transformation reflects the difficult resource allocation decisions that companies face when managing multiple brands with overlapping markets. The rise and fall of B. Dalton bookstores reminds us that even the most successful retail innovations eventually become obsolete, and that survival requires constant adaptation to changing customer needs, competitive pressures, and technological possibilities. In the end, B. Dalton's greatest legacy may be the millions of readers it created and the proof that books could successfully become mass-market consumer products without losing their power to educate, entertain, and inspire.